Lock controls. So, in my previous video I deliberately left away the lock controls when I talked about the controls in the left panel, and that is actually for a reason, because lock controls are designed to work a little differently than primary controls are actually. So the first thing we can notice is that when we swap from primaries to lock control, something changes down here. So we can set a low range and a high range now. This means that in contrast to the lift gamma gain controls, we might remember, so this is lift gamma gain. Lock controls work in areas. So for lock controls, it's pretty much like we have our shadow, midtone, and highlight range, and that's shadows, midtones, and highlights. And the first thing we can see is that by affecting the highlight and the low range, we are effectively shifting those. So now we changed our low range, and now when we change the high range, we might as well do so. Then we changed the high range. So basically those two controls determine which part of the image is affected by the midtone, the shadow, and the highlight control. So now that we know what our lock controls are designed to work like, what do I use them for? So in principle, there's like at least two scenarios in which we could use those. And the first one is we want to affect like only a very specific portion of our luma curve. So say we only want to affect this area. Then we take our highlight range and take it up to somewhere like 70%, 75%, and take our highlights and color them. And now we see that we really in fact only affected this portion of the image. So that's where we acted with the highlights. What is the other scenario? Well, this one's a little more complicated, and we need to go back to some image processing details first. So like today, a lot of cameras capture log encoded footage, which means that there is sort of an inverse S-curve in the luma profile. And when we now get that footage, we first want to normalize it. So we want to affect the footage in a way that looks just like linear footage to our eyes. So what we do then is add some sort of lookup table or color management system that converts our log encoded footage to a linear color space, such as Rec 719 or Rec 2020, or well, whatever you want to work in. We also could start by adding some curve that in fact does pretty much the opposite of what the original log encoding curve did. So by adding some curve, we're also normalizing our image. And in order to show you what that actually looks like when applied, I brought into the timeline some Cinema DNG, Blackmagic, Pocket Cinema footage I shot of my girlfriend on one of our last holiday trips. And what you see here is that we're inside a Blackmagic design color space with film gamma, which is a logarithmic gamma applied. So what I could do now is just change the color space to Rec 709 here, and boom, we got it inside a linear color space. Well, for the sake of the tutorial, I don't want to do that, but in this case, we'll apply a normalizing lob. So, and that is when actually our log controls come in. So now, why do we use log controls? In this case, we have two stages of the image, which is the one up here, where we have our first nodes before a lookup table, and the one right here, where we have the other stage, which is after the lookup table. So in this case, before we enter that node, we have logarithmically encoded footage, and afterwards we have linearly encoded footage, which means that before the lookup table, we want to work in the log controls for the logarithmically encoded footage, and afterwards we want to work in the primary wheels for the linearly encoded footage. So let me show you what I mean. So in this case, I might want to bring some greenish tint into the shadows. So I added that node, and I'm pushing in some subtle green into the shadows. You can see it in the waveform over here. There, we're pushing out the green, and we got some green tint all over our shadow areas. Yep. So that's how it works in the log curves. Now, say we don't want to do it in the log curves, but we want to do it afterwards. And that is when we choose our primaries and again push some green into the shadows. So you can see whenever I'm swapping between those two images, you can see there's not really much changing, and that is probably because I didn't pull away the same amount in the lift and the shadow wheel in the log wheels. Also, I didn't use the proper log to Rec 709 conversion log provided by Blackmagic Design, but I just used the RE-log C to Rec 709 log over here. Alright, so that's what log controls are for. Now you guys know the deal. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. And if you think I should turn up the speed of the clip to 2 times before rendering it out, please just tell me in the comments. Alright, see ya and catch you next time.